Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back. We have Dr. Bill Angel here from OSU Lima. And Bill, I think a few things happened yesterday. Maybe some important things, especially in Ohio.
Yeah.
So let's discuss maybe.
There's an old saying. 24 hours is a long time in the life of a politician.
That's true.
And Democrats and especially Biden supporters who woke up on Monday morning were dismayed by the fact that he was losing 5 of 6 battleground states. And then Tuesday happens, and you get issue 1 here in Ohio. You get the defeat of the victory of the Democrats in Virginia, that's part 2, and the Andy Beshear election in Kentucky. So all that kind of just changed the narrative overnight.
That's true. So talk about issue 1. I mean, were you surprised about this at all? Like,
I was not surprised because back in 2022, a lot of candidates who ran in 22, Democratic candidates who ran in 2022.
I'm going to give you a hand mic here.
Okay. Like a lot of Democratic candidates who ran in 2022 ran on the basis of being in favor of choice and abortion and reproductive rights. And so I wasn't surprised by it, but I was surprised by the size of the victory. I mean, it was pretty close to a double-digit win. When polls a week before had the pro-reproductive rights side, the pro-issue 1 side, only half dozen points ahead. So they swept the undecided vote in that last week. So that was pretty substantial. Yeah, and I think that actually there was a lot of support from both Democrats and Republicans because from the interviews I had listened to on various stations and whatnot, but it seemed like, you know, with that amount of support, then there must have been a combination of votes there. Well, especially independents, and of course some Republicans, but independent voters, things seem to go with the Democrats on this one, which is bodes well for what's going to happen in 2024. Yeah. So what do you think about issue 2? That was something that actually I was surprised on. I really didn't know what to expect with that one. I know our neighboring states have voted yes, and what did you think about that? I was not terribly surprised. I was surprised that it really ran pretty much neck and neck with issue 1 statewide. Yeah. Now, there were some places where, interestingly enough, there were more voters in favor of issue 2 than were voters in favor of issue 1. And actually, a number of voters were turned out for issue 2 rather than issue 1. So, I mean, there were some states, but statewide, it was pretty much an even split down the way, and I was really surprised by that. But I don't think you can draw any conclusions that say voters for issue 1 were also, voters for issue 2 also transferred their votes to issue 1. I don't think that's the case at all. Right. Do you expect any changes for our state now that those 2 issues have passed? I think that what will happen next will be a change on how we redistrict. I think that's going to be the next thing to happen, draw districts so that there's more competition in the state legislature, and you don't have the state legislature doing what they tried to do last August, which is to ram legislation through that would make it difficult to amend the Ohio Constitution. So I think that's the next thing that has to happen. Yeah, and it looks like our neighboring state of Kentucky, they re-elected a Democrat. So that was a big deal for them. He's become a new star in the Democratic Party, Andy Beshear. Now, I know he's just got elected, so it's unlikely that he'd transfer himself into a vice presidential candidate. But certainly he's become a star in the Democratic Party and became an advocate for fearless support of reproductive rights. Because everybody was writing him off. That's true. He didn't have a chance, but he won by a substantial margin and a substantial victory, and won in spite of the fact that, actually because he was so steadfast in his support of reproductive rights. Yeah, and what about Virginia? I mean, Virginia, that was a big deal. Yeah, it was this, because Democrats didn't think they were going to flip the Chamber of Deputies to the lower house, but they did. And they held on and added to their support in the Virginia Senate. And that was a real embarrassment to the governor of New York, who was kind of, the governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, who was kind of a rising star in the Republican Party. Yeah, he was. And now, you know, what's he going to do? I mean, gone all in on anti-abortion or abortion ban activities. Where's he going to go from here? Yeah. So what else do you want to talk about now? Well, I think the other point to make of this is that I was really impressed by was, I said, the fearless advocacy of Andy Beshear. You know, he was facing an opponent who was going after him on things like transgender rights and other things. He didn't bat an eyelash. He stood in support of everything he stood for. And also the idea of transgender rights became also mixed up in this issue about abortion. And that's another one that's a losing issue for Republicans and a winning issue for Democrats. Yeah, so do you think that there's something that maybe that politicians can learn from these I think Republicans.
outcomes?
I think Republicans are in a hard way right now. They just can't flip to being pro reproductive rights when they've put so much investment in the idea of opposing abortion. And so that's going to be a real hard sell for Republicans. It's become, as somebody has said, kind of an albatross among the Republican Party.
Right. Well, Dr. Bill, thank you so much for coming out today. Really appreciate your insight on everything. And don't go away, because we have medical news coming up next.